Hello, and welcome to another edition of Sutton Impact Family Style. I'm Jason.
I'm Bill. I'm going to start off with my business moment. And the WNBA is bringing in an outside consultant to review the business practices. And I find it really interesting because one of the things that they're considering is moving from the summer to the fall-winter.
Ew.
And years ago, remember when the WNBA made its debut, so did the American Basketball League, which was a women's league.
I did not know that.
And it played in the fall-winter. And the WNBA essentially put out of business because of the support from the NBA. But there was a lot of really good players in that league, and they were in some really good markets, and that's where they were playing. And I've always contended that the reason the WNBA plays in the summer, and the reason that they did it was because they wanted dates for the arenas and suite nights, so they could make, increase the price of suites and make the, a business in the summertime for the arenas.
It makes sense.
It makes sense, but it really hasn't panned out that way because, people don't want to use their suites. It's not valuable. It's not the audience. And, like in Minnesota, which has been probably the most successful team, and people go to those games, even though despite the fact that Minnesota is such a short summer, you usually don't want to be inside. But Phoenix has done, fairly well. But for most markets, summer just doesn't work. I mean, you can't you have camp days where you bring in all these camp kids for a couple dollar tickets, and you fill up the building, and that increases your average attendance. But the attendance just hasn't been that good.
And do you think moving
we're
to
talking 20 plus years here. Now, if people say, well, maybe it's just women's sports. And I saw a highlight on ESPN the other night, and I saw Orlando, the women's team in Orlando, I don't know what they're called. I think the Pride for some reason.
Okay.
Something like that. But the Orlando women's soccer team, and it looked like the building was full.
Right.
So I don't know. Maybe we'll see how this works out. This is something I want to keep my eyes on and see how this works out because they're going to look at everything that they do, and they're already saying might be a potential attendance boost from entering. San Antonio team went to Las Vegas, but I just don't know. It's going to be in the Mandalay Center. There's a lot of tourists, so maybe people go for curiosity. I just don't know.
I think women's soccer is just infinitely more popular than women's basketball anyway, though.
It could be, yeah.
I mean,
I
think
know. We'll see how this all plays out because I just don't know where it's going.
Because again, I feel like
it's interesting that they're going to go this route now with the WNBA having an outside consultant. But I think they know what the problems are. I just don't. Maybe need somebody else to tell them, but we'll see.
I don't know if moving to the fall where you're competing against you're competing at the NBA, NHL, NFL, Major League Baseball,
college basketball,
playoffs,
high school basketball.
Yeah.
But then you say that women's high school basketball, the teams will be together, so maybe they'd want to go to the games. They have more group business. Possible. Anything's possible.
Yeah.
I just don't know.
It's hard to say. I always thought it was weird that, I know when the first time I became really aware of the marketing of women's NBA or WNBA basketball, I found their initial campaign, sort of insulting. They were implying that, the men's game was just athleticism above the rim and theirs was somehow a more fundamentally sound basketball game. They tried to go that route, which simply wasn't true. And it just, I think it made, there was no reason to go adversarial against, don't compare yourself to something you can't compete with. It's just.
Yeah. So, we'll see where it goes.
Yeah. I just think, like lots of things, they're also learning that with all the options we have right now, and everyone has more options than they've ever had at any given point, it's tough to get wherever you think you're going to get. The NFL, the most popular sport in America, their ratings are down. Slightly, but they're still down. And they're probably never going to reach the peak that they ever were because it's not realistic anymore. Everything is just so splintered. So I don't know if there's any way, I think you just sort of settle into your niche, and if you're making a profit, then just be happy you're making a profit. I mean, I don't know.
It's interesting. We'll see where it goes. So I also went to the Players Championship on Friday, and I think what Simpson's going to win. He's been winning for 3 days, or I don't think he's winning Friday or not, or Thursday, but he's been winning Friday, Saturday, today. Tiger made a really good run, but I was really impressed. They have they let kids can come in for free with a paying adult. They have a kids zone. They let soldiers in for free. They let retired military in for free. At nice crowd, nice location, really good concessions, fun place to be, and a really nice event. So I had a really good time. And the commissioner, who was my GA at one time, let me bring a bunch of students up for free, and we had a really nice afternoon on Friday.
Very nice.
But a nice event, and it was fun watching it on TV. It's a beautiful course. So it was really different, since I went to the Masters last month. This isn't the Waste Management Open, which is crazy, but it's more of a fan event than the Masters is. I mean, you can have your camera, you can express yourself, you can yell, you can cheer. It's more fan friendly, I think. And they have a lot of concession stands and a lot of it's not as reasonably priced as the Masters, but it's not exploitive either. So
right.
I thought that was a nice event to see.
Well, the Masters can afford to have those prices because the only people that can get in there, I mean, they've already made so much,
Yeah, I mean, those were expensive tickets at the Masters too.
Yeah. Yeah,
I mean, this was pretty affordable, and it was a good thing. It's hot. It's really hot, and they're moving this one to March next year, so maybe that'll be better too. But it's a really good tournament, and it's a challenging course. Like the day we went on that par 3 of the Island Green, there were more balls in the water than there were pars.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was it windy or that just the cold?
Yeah, and I mean, they had the whole location in a really tough location, and they moved it back on Friday and Saturday. They moved it to a more friendly location. They moved it back to a real tough location for that game.
Oh, for Sunday for the final round?
Yeah.
Nice.
So, what do you think about the Celtics and the and Cavaliers?
That was just an absolute butt stomping. And I thought the series was going to go at least 7 because I don't think it's a good matchup for the Sixers. Or, I mean, not the Sixers, for the Cavs from an athletic standpoint and a matchup standpoint. But I thought after Marquise Morris talked all that crap before the game.
And he backed it up.
That's the first thing I wanted to say is, congrats, Marquise Morris, because you had a hell of a game. And you backed up everything you said, which is just,
Yeah, I've never seen LeBron that frustrated. You see what he did at the end of the half? He took the ball, he caught the shot, and then the buzzer went off, and he just took it and threw it.
Yeah.
And you could really tell that he was frustrated.
Well, the Celtics, I mean, they're technically missing their 2 best players, Irving and Gordon Hayward.
Right.
But they have so many
Would
long...
Gordon Hayward play half a game all year?
He played 5 minutes, actually.
Yeah.
But they're so long and athletic and well coached. I mean, I
and
still
they
think...
can go deep.
And they're deep, yeah.
They can play a lot of guys.
I think the fact that the Raptors coach... Yeah, the fact that the Raptors coach won Coach of the Year, I think, is a joke. Not just because they fired him, which is another thing we can talk about in a minute, but I just don't see how you can watch the Celtics and not think that's the best coach team in basketball.
Yeah.
They
listen to him. I mean, they show the huddles. I watch the players' faces. I usually always watch that. A lot of times the players are looking in the stands and not paying attention at all. But they listen to him, and he seems to know what he's doing. He seems to have a good grasp of everything.
They make adjustments constantly. And they seem, they seem to know where, the players seem to know where to go, where to be. They get a lot of wide open shots. They run great plays out of the timeout. He's just that team's impressive. And again, you got rookies and second year players stepping up and just playing incredibly well. And again, I mean, what really helped the Cavs against the Raptors was the Kevin Love, Kyle Korver sort of pick and roll thing that they did with LeBron. And against the Raptors, with slow guys on that team, it's easy to do. Against this athletic young Celtics team, those guys can't get off. And, I mean, I think LeBron James will obviously not play like this all the time. He's LeBron James, the best player on the planet. But I don't know if any of those other guys are. I don't know where his help is going to come from in this series, because they can take everybody else out of the game, and they have enough athletes to throw at him that they can at least stick with him. You're not going to stop him, but they have enough guys they can throw that at least are physical enough to stay in front of him. So, like I said, I thought it was Cavs in 7 just because of the way LeBron was playing, but I definitely, I mean, after seeing today, I certainly wouldn't be shocked if the Celtics won and went to the finals.
And how are you feeling about your Houston Golden State matchup?
Well, as we've talked multiple times, like, you know, it's. I think that series is going to come down to referees. I think if you let Harden travel on every play and let him, flop and get tons of calls, then it's going to be tough for anybody to beat them. If you're going to call basketball the way basketball is meant to be played, then I think the Golden State Warriors would run them off the floor in 4 or 5 games.
So what do you think just about game 1? Game 1. You both had some rest.
They both had some rest. I think the Warriors are going to run them out of the gym again. I think it'll be like today's game.
Okay.
I just think, between Draymond and Kevin Durant, it's terrible that Steph is not 100% Steph. Because you can tell he's not quite as quick. He's not quite as crafty. He can't do this. I mean, some of the super, lightning bug, quick back and forth stuff he does, that's still not there. But he's still an amazing player. It's just that that's one thing that it makes him a little bit easier to guard. But like I said, I think a lot of it will come down to, how much BS they let go. Because they call it, in the fourth quarter, they call it a travel on LeBron. And I'm like, Harden literally does that every play he has the ball in his hands. And they never seem to call it. Which I think is bad for the league. I think it's bad for young people watching basketball. It's just,
Yeah.
I mean, if you're playing against somebody who's traveling all the time, it's hard to stop them. Because
How about your NHL teams?
Well,
So Winnipeg looked really good.
they
They
look
get
great.
to Vegas. And the Capitals seem to be really hitting their prime right now.
Well, you had to wonder, what finally... I mean, they've lost the Penguins 10 straight series. So you had to wonder what finally getting over that Penguins hump would do. Would they just all of a sudden be like, we won our our pseudo championship, when small schools get to the Sweet 16 and then they just sort of crumble? And I sort of worried about them because you look at when they beat the Penguins in that Game 7, they were celebrating like they won the cup. But it looks like they shook that rust off pretty quickly, And now
The Lightning were sitting around. The Lightning had been sitting around for more days. So I'm going to see what the Lightning does tonight.
Right.
I can dismiss that game. The Lightning being, hadn't played for a week or so. And
Certainly.
The Capitals have been playing consistently, so we'll see where it goes.
Well, the Capitals have been, for the last 7 or 8 years, one of the most talented teams in hockey. They just kept running into the Penguins.
Yeah.
And
Defensively, though, the Capitals are really strong.
yeah. And I think what helped the Penguins this year, I mean, the Penguins went from being the fastest team in the NHL the last couple of years to more of a middle-of-the-pack team speed-wise. And the Lightning aren't as fast either, so I think that helped the Capitals.
Yeah.
But like I said, I didn't know, psychologically if they would be back for game. I was impressed that they were back for game 1. I know the Lightning had been off a while, but I thought there might be a we beat the Penguins hangover with the Capitals, and there just wasn't. They came right out and played.
Well, I'll talk a little bit of baseball. Kutch went home to Pittsburgh.
That was beautiful to see.
It was almost like almost a 2.5 to 2 minute standing O when he was introduced.
Yeah, I
And
watched.
then he got another standing O when he came up to bat. When he got a hit. And, his family was back there, and I thought that was nice. And I know the Pirates did a couple video tributes to him. I thought that was first class as well.
It really was. It was beautiful to see that when they first announced it. You got a standing O for, like you said, over 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Because again, Andrew McCutchen.
I want to see the attendances now next week, since a lot of those people came out to see Kutch. There's a lot of McCutchen jerseys. So we'll see how if it was. It was a weekend series, first time back. We'll see.
Yeah, and I know it's a business, and McCutchen looked like this was the best time to sell and try to get something for him, because it seems like but he was a great ambassador to that city, and he was a great Pirate, and he was he's really everything that fans say they want in a player. Andrew McCutchen was at Pittsburgh.
He was.
And, he didn't want to leave Pittsburgh either. He wanted to be a Pirate for life. Like I said, I hope he does really well. I hope the Giants do well.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
It's fun to watch.
in the American League, it looks like it's once again Yankees, Red Sox, and I guess we had technically the Astros are getting a ton of attention, but they're actually not great. I mean, their record's not anywhere near as good as Boston or New York.
They're not but they're pitching dominant. Charlie Morton is 5-0.
And Garrett
The
Cole,
same Charlie Morton that languished in Pittsburgh and some other places.
and Garrett Cole, who was
He's 5-0, and Garrett Cole leads the league in strikeouts.
Yeah.
And he's 4-1.
and he was a Pirate who was under team control until 2019, and he's in his mid-20s. I would just like to point that out for
Yes.
the future. Yeah. And the people say the one thing missing from the Pirates, not to go to Pittsburgh on this baseball talk, but is that they don't have an ace on their staff. You have Talion and a couple other guys that have the potential, the stuff, but you literally have.
You know what, though? I'll contend that if Garrett Cole still was there, he still would be the ace on the staff because obviously working with Verlander and the coaches there, they figured his game out, and now he can be an ace. And he wasn't going to get that support or that information when he was in Pittsburgh.
Okay.
So I'm just going to write it off to another great talent that the Pirates let go, and he goes somewhere else, and he plays beyond what he's ever done in Pittsburgh.
Yeah. Again, it's one of those. It's more the cumulative effect of 30 years of watching the Pirates do this over and over again.
Yeah.
It's just even if this is the best situation for him, and he never would have reached these heights in Pittsburgh, like you said, because he hasn't the last 2 years.
No.
But it's just a shame to see yet another guy go to another. You look around the league and it's like the Pirates need all these things, and it's like all those things were on their team, and they're all doing really well. Like you said, that's two starters who were on the Pirates who are now 9-1, leading the league in strikeouts, and now they're on another team. So
Switching gears a little bit, I watched Brian Gumbel's Real Sports the other night.
okay,
That's a really good show. They really do some really good things. And they had a piece last night on how college athletes are exploited.
oh yeah,
And it was really, really well done. And they talked about this guy that died. He played for Division II, I think it was Frostburg. I think it was Frostburg. I'm not positive. But he died. And the coach, the AD, nobody ever even went to the parents and said, "We're sorry." I mean, it was some really, and that's what the mother said. I don't know if that happened or not, but,
Right.
watching this, and then they did the study on how many hours an athlete puts in. Like they did their own study, and they came up with 50 hours for women's basketball team, 50 hours of basketball-related activity in a week, and the rules are 20 hours. But when they showed how the university counted it, they counted it as 5.5 hours.
yeah. It's just
Because they didn't count the plane, the bus ride. They didn't count the meetings. They didn't count a lot of other things that make sense that you have to count. But I thought the show was really good. And then he did another special on Nebraska's women's bowling team, which has won 10 national championships. And it was just interesting. Which reminds me of something I meant to bring up last week, and I didn't bring up. Do you know that cornhole is a professional sport now?
I did not know it was I thought it was just an activity at bars. I did not know it was a professional sport.
They had professional cornhole championships from Kissimmee, Florida, on ESPN.
Wow.
So not only does it exist,
It's on ESPN. Wow.
Yeah, so it's one of those things that when I saw it, I had to turn it on.
Of course.
Because it's one of those things, I don't believe what I'm seeing kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And they're talking about different bags that you throw, a grip side, a slide side, making it, I don't know. I just thought it was, okay, whatever. But professional cornhole.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the rules are...
I might have started training. I might have seen, but I think I'm pretty good at cornhole. I think if I made it my life's work after I retire, maybe something will happen here.
Yeah. I feel like professional cornholing, you could almost go the way of if you got some sort of really cool sponsor. If you did it, do you remember my South Park guys did basketball, which was supposed to be a sport for average people to play? If you did a national sponsored cornhole league, with like
Yeah.
a $50 entry
By
fee or
John,
whatever.
I think it is sponsored. It is sponsored Johnsonville Brats.
Johnsonville Brats. But you brought in,
That's
you know,
right. Because it's a tailgate sport.
but if you did it for a year and you know, I don't know, show it on Facebook or partner with one of those like social media sites, and you did a city tournament when there's no restrictions, no sex, no age, anybody, you know, whatever your team is, what your team is, as long as everybody's playing by the same rules. You did like a city tournament, state tournament, accumulating in, you know, a top 50, you know, round robin tournament for the Cornhole Championship of America. I think that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
And again, if you did it with like Facebook or somebody like that, where you don't really have to watch all of it, and then you get the right announcer.
It's boring.
What's that?
It's boring to watch.
Yeah, well, that's why you have to have the right personality on the mic. Like, get two. I don't know who you could possibly get to call it, but two people that understand what they're calling without understanding what they're calling. I think it'd be pretty fun.
Pretty amazing.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
So, going back to golf. So this week we were at the beach, so I read the Caddyshack book.
Okay.
And I got to tell you, it was really a fun read. And I have to tell you, I have no idea. And you're a filmmaker, so I can ask you this. When they turned the film in, it was 4.5 hours long.
I have to admit, having seen the film, I would love to see an unedited Caddyshack. Just because those people...
It was 4.5 hours, and they had to hire two people that had nothing to do with the film to come in and make sense out of it.
I would
put it together. So they actually had to put it together as a film.
I mean, if
they were like, you know, they'd be writing it, rewriting it, and it was just like it never made sense.
But if it's 4 hours of Chevy Chase, I mean, I guess you said that the Chevy Chase Bill Murray scene was just one night that they got together.
Yeah, they actually brought Bill Murray. People were watching the two things, and they said, "We have these two guys there together. Why don't we have them on the set together?" And they had to write that whole. They improvised that whole scene. That nothing. They had nothing. It was nothing in the original script of the movie.
Right. If I'm watching, you know, what Bill Murray and Chevy Chase and all those. If I'm watching, 4 hours of them just riffing and making up scenes like that, I would watch. I mean, if it's just a mess of Danny Noonan golfing and stuff, I'd be less interested. But if it's the funny people just sort of railroading scenes and just trying to be funny, then I would watch that in a heartbeat.
In the original screenplay was a love triangle between Noonan, Maggie, and D'Annunzio. That was the story. And they were caddies. And then all this other stuff, they said you got to have stars to sell the movie. And all those other things were added on. It was basically the Murray boys' experience as caddies in Illinois growing up.
Okay.
And then it became that. But, the book is really interesting. And if even half of the amount of drugs they describe in that book are true, it's an incredible feat that they got that movie done.
Wow. Nice. Now I kind of want to watch it again.
Yeah, I definitely want to watch it again now to see a lot of this stuff because they would say, they had a script for Rodney and he couldn't do it because he's used to saying something, having people react to him because there's an audience.
Right.
And so they couldn't do that. So they would just tell him to go do his bit. And what his bit was, whatever his bit was, he would just make it up as he went along.
Yeah.
And then they'd have to tell him at night it was funny, but they weren't allowed. He said it was really funny. They couldn't laugh because you can't laugh because you're acting.
Right.
And so there's a lot of things like that I found really, really interesting. It's a really fun read.
Nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
Well, I have now caught completely up on Killing Eve.
Yeah, now you said you're recommending that, so I'm going to try that out.
I think it's the best show on television right now. It's that good.
Wow.
The character work is fantastic. The writing's cool. And I think because I haven't seen characters like this portrayed on screen. Even though it's, the story is basically, an MI6 agent looking for a hit woman. Which we've seen many, many times before.
Yes, we have.
But the way that Sandra Oh portrays Eve, she's the title character. She's, she was basically a pencil pusher who sort of started doing some research because she gets bored in her job and her life. But she never and which happens, we've seen in a lot of movies, right?
Right.
Where the person sort of stumbles upon it, but then they become like this action hero. and she never becomes that. She's still the same. She still gets scared. She's still the same vulnerable person. It's got really refreshing, realistic dialogue. Like when you watch the characters talk, it feels very real. And then the woman that plays the hit woman is fantastic. Like, I feel like she did a lot of research for her part in her psychological conditions, and she's nailing it. So, and again, I do know that the one thing I'm a little nervous about is it was supposed to be a miniseries with just one season, but people loved it so much they are making it a second season.
Yeah, that could be problematic.
Now, like I said, the first 7 episodes have been so brilliant. I'm just going to say that it's in their hands, and I'm willing to go on the journey with them. But if you envision this as being 10 episodes, I don't want to see you make it 20. Because again, it's one of those things for me personally, where like, if I like the writer and the director and the people involved, I'll watch the next thing they do right away. You know, if you say instead of like season 2 of Killing Eve, you said from the writer and director of Killing Eve, here's their next project, I'm just as excited to watch that as I am the second season. Maybe more so, because if the first season was only supposed to be 1, then that's all I wanted to see. But like I said, it's incredibly well done. I really like it.
Well, speaking of incredibly well done, which this isn't, I'm still trying to figure out season 2 of Westworld.
Yeah,
I mean, it's like a free-for-all chaotic.
I don't feel like the writers of that show ever had any. I mean, I think I aired my grievances out with that show a few times, but that show is all flash and no substance. And like their big reveals were things that the average intelligent person figured out, halfway through episode 1. So like their big reveal episode, there wasn't anything to reveal because everybody already knew what was going on. And I felt like there was a lot of other things.
It should have been 8 to 10 episodes, period.
And it seemed like there were a lot.
Things where less is more would describe this. To go on another year here, it doesn't make sense to me.
No, it doesn't. And there was other things too. It seemed like they just wrote things because they wanted to have a scene, even if that scene made no sense. Like the entire plot of the first season about trying to sneak information out of the park was kind of ridiculous because they were the owners of everything. They had access in the lab to everything. There was no need to like send somebody into the middle of the park to secretly send in information because Anthony Hopkins had no idea what was going on. He was busy playing with robots in the middle of the park. Like the entire, none of the show made sense. I haven't even watched any of these season 2. That's how much I didn't really care. Not to say I won't eventually if I get bored and I have nothing else to watch, but...
No, it's been disappointing. So I get an interesting food moment.
Okay.
So we went through Savannah on the way to Hilton Head, specifically to go to the Lady and Sons, the Paul Dean's restaurant that I always loved, right?
Right.
So they have lunch from noon to 4 and then dinner from 4 till 9, I think it is, whatever it is. And I think we got there like at 2:30 is when I think we got there. So we were eating lunch. And maybe I didn't get there. Maybe I should have waited to get there at 4 for dinner, or maybe I should have got there at noon for lunch.
Yeah.
But I have to tell you, I would no longer recommend that you have to go to Paul Dean's Lady and Son to have a meal. It was the average at best, considering what it has been. It was average. It was a total disappointment.
That's a bummer.
Total bummer because, like I ate one piece of fried chicken, thought it was great. I ate over another piece of fried chicken, thought it was And that's usually what the highlight of the buffet. And, it just was disappointing.
It's too bad.
Yeah. It was really disappointing.
Oh, my last movie moment, I did finally see Black Panther.
And?
I mean, to be fair, I have not seen all the Marvel movies, but this one was a standalone movie. And I thought, for a superhero movie, it was one of the better ones I've ever seen. The part that made me somewhat frustrated and angry, and I'm not going to tell what the ending is, but the very end of the film, it's sort of about, relocating all these resources to different parts of the world to help them. And it just made me sad and mad because we can do that now. Like, that doesn't have to be the ending of a Marvel movie that's some sort of fantasy. Like, we have more than enough resources. We have more than enough technology. We have all these things we could be doing to help our schools, and we're not doing it. And it's sad that it's a made-up ending of a Marvel movie is where that stuff starts to happen, and not just in real life. So it was one of those, like, I really enjoyed the movie, but that part just brought me back to the reality of the world we live in, where it's like, we could do all these things, We could have VR in the classrooms. We could have technology we could have all these things for kids around the world to help with education, and we don't. You know?
Right.
We could have healthcare that everybody could afford and try to make everybody better, and we don't do it. And it would be nice if people got as excited about that as they do about Marvel movies. But that being said, like I said, I did enjoy the film. So, yeah.
So, I'm trying to figure anything else to talk about yet. I mean, it was a big sports weekend. Yeah, I watched golf. I watched college softball. I watched college baseball. I watched baseball. I watched NBA. I watched hockey. I'm going to watch hockey tonight.
Yeah.
It's a good time of year.
It is. Not a lot of NFL, though. So.
No, the soap opera between Ben and Mason Rudolph seemed like it got a little bit better.
And it seemed like, I mean, obviously Ben Roethlisberger, as we know, is a Steeler fan. And this is good that the Steeler talk is at the end. So that way, if you don't want to hear anymore, please subscribe and we'll talk Steelers for a few seconds. Every time he opens his mouth, he becomes sort of less likable. Whether he's complaining about an injury or, you know. Like I said, I did sort of defend him in that way, where it's like when I look at this draft, they did nothing to get better on offense. Because you can argue that, right? But you also lost Mason. Because I thought a receiver was a need regardless of what you did with Martavis Bryant. But you traded Martavis Bryant, which means the next two receivers on your team are undrafted players, practice squad players, Justin Hunter, who's never been anything in the NFL, and Darius Hayward-Bay, who I've come to really enjoy as a special teams ace on the Steelers. But I don't like it when he's out there in offensive sets. Because he's still not a receiver who's good at catching, which is sort of a bummer when you're a receiver. Yeah. So I thought receiver was a need no matter what. And even if Washington turns out to be better than Bryant, you're still a receiver short from what you needed to go coming out of the draft. And again, maybe Jalen Samuels, that 5th-round pick, turns out to be that guy. It's sort of, you know, you have two backs in the backfield. He can roll out to tight end. A healthy Vance McDonald this year. But I feel like if you're Ben Roethlisberger, you're feeling like we are so close. The Patriots are vulnerable right now. And we didn't add any actual weapons to the team other than the one that we got rid of. So we sort of, you know.
But my point is, was he really that good last year? He really wasn't. He did really nothing last year for that team.
No, but if you watch the tape, like whenever he's out there, you have to account for him. If he's one-on-one on the outside, like you have to cheat the safety over to him, and it opens up the field for a lot of other players. And like I said, maybe Juju and the other, you know, in Washington will step right in, and you won't even see the difference. Hopefully.
Well, I think Juju had assumed the role last year because Bryant wasn't doing it. He didn't know if he knew the plays or what he did, but he was terrible.
Yeah, but like I said, when he was out there, he's still a threat. And
yeah, he's a threat like Dwight Stone was.
Right, but days. I mean, you lost Eli Rogers, who was the knee injury. He was your 4th receiver. So who's your 4th wide receiver now? And again, I give the Steelers the benefit.
They drafted a guy from Penn State, right?
No,
they drafted another receiver, didn't they? Or they signed a bunch of free agent receivers.
They signed
a guy from Pitt.
Yeah, who has like 22. Yeah, he's got 22 career catches. He's a return specialist. I mean, you know, in a league where you never get to return the kicks, he's a return specialist. And unless he can be a gunner on special teams or something else, he's not even going to make the roster. And again, maybe there's some guy on the practice squad they love, or you know, somebody they'll find on the scrap heap or whatever. But I guess I could see this frustration. We're like, we're this close. You took a project tackle. You replaced one receiver with another receiver. You took 2 safeties and not a linebacker. And I know, you know, again, that's the way the draft played out. Maybe this guy will step right in and be just as good. But I think he was just, I mean, granted, he should have kept that behind closed doors. It did not sound like an idiot in public.
They scored 42 points against Jacksonville and lost.
Yeah, I know.
Offense wasn't the problem. The defense was the problem. You got to get off the field.
It's true.
And you can't be giving up 40 points.
No, that's true.
Yeah. Well, we're a couple months away.
Yes, we are.
From starting all over again.
Indeed.
All right, well, I'm going to be watching basketball with great interest tomorrow night and hockey with great interest tonight.
Yeah, it's exciting. And we'll have a lot of, I assume, hockey and NBA talk next week. Again, thank you all the people that do subscribe. Please rate us. We still don't have a lot of ratings considering the number of subscribers. So, you know, if we can get some more of those, just go to, you know, just click 4 stars, 5 stars, whatever you feel like giving us. We'd really appreciate it. And again, if you can go to Patreon, we could really use a little bit here and there. So, and thank you so much to the people that have continued to support us through Patreon, including my mom on Mother's Day. Yeah, including my mom on Mother's Day, who was our first Patreon subscriber, and obviously Happy Mother's Day again.
Okay.
Because I know she listens to our podcast. It won't be today, but you know.
She listens every Monday.
Exactly. All right. So until next week.